I'm gonna redo that line.
Okay.
Because I think this will probably be a good intro bit. This is gonna be another one of those episodes where people are gonna hate me.
Do you want me to say what I said again?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So do it again.
So this week we are doing something a little different. If you didn't see the community post, tweet, whatever, I still haven't actually put that out. I wanted to wait till we actually confirmed we're doing NES games, and I didn't know for sure because we'll get to that in a second. But we are doing the our top five NES games. Initially, we had Castlevania Symphony of the Night scheduled, but uh, it's a really tough game.
Game hard.
Not even like ashamed of this. I had to beat it with cheats on and save states. Initially, I was going to play it basic, stock. I was going to play it on the PS1 for my ultimate PS1 video. I immediately was looking up how to get my save file onto my Steam Deck so I could play it with cheats. Well, initially just save states, and then I was like, this reach level 99 instantly cheat sounds really fun because game is difficult. We moved on. Jordan ran out of time to even play the game.
Life finds a way
To get in the way.
to get in the way. Weddings and other family stuff just got in the way, and so we made the executive decision
to not play the game.
to just go, maybe another time.
Maybe it's better left unsaid. But instead, today we're going to be talking about our top 5 NES games. And we thought, what better way to substitute this last game of the month with the series that we're going to do for some, not all, but some of the last Saturdays of every month. Playing 52 complete games a year is going to be something that is going to be tough, even with getting ahead on games, which we plan on doing and we've already done. Things like Lego Star Wars were done way ahead of the podcast when it went up. But so for every month that has 5 Saturdays in the month, which in 2024, crazy to think we're about to be in 2024, is March, July, or June or July, August, and November, next November. Those have 5 Saturdays in them. And instead of doing a 5th game in those months, we'll be doing top 5s for certain consoles, certain game series, whatever. And today we're starting with one of the original consoles, the console that saved us from the video game crash of 1982, the NES.
I love the NES. NES, one of my favorite consoles. No, it's a great console. I'm glad it brought video games back from the depths of ET. Because without video games, I don't think I would be the same person I am today.
Yeah.
Also, quick disclaimer, we are recording this not almost immediately after the Kirby and the Amazing Mirror podcast, in which I did say I was a little bit under the weather. I still am feeling under the weather because it's only been 15 minutes. I have some tea, so we're going to get through this. My enthusiasm and also my voice may not be as emotive and loud as it normally is, but just bear with us.
And just like in next week's episode, I will be the enthusiasm today. I have a lot to say about the NES games. I know your list, and there's reasons why some of those games are not included on my list that we'll get into in a moment.
But that's why it's my list and not yours.
Yep. But my number 5 for the NES is The Legend of Iowa.
Oh, we're starting at number 5 and working our way up?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is a big reveal. People are going to be like questioning what number 1 is. Like, ooh, you haven't mentioned this game, or this game yet.
So yeah,
your number 1 is.
So tell us what The Legend of Iowa is. And please don't pull out an encyclopedia.
It's a really dumb ROM hack that I randomly found on AliExpress one time, and I just wanted to make a funny haha. I've never actually played the game. The NES is a tough console for me to rank because there are a lot of games that have aged well, but there are also some games that have not aged as well, and that's why they got substantially improved remake versions of them. But that being said, I'm also not from the 80s.
What?
We were barely born in the 90s, so
I'm a 90s kid through and through. I don't know about
yeah.
you.
I definitely classify myself as a 90s kid, even though we were born in 99. But
Still counts.
yeah, what I like to say is when you grow up with a bunch of hand-me-downs, you are a 90s kid.
Yeah, well, when you grow up with siblings who grew up in the 90s,
Yeah.
like, you basically just do everything they do.
Mm.
Therefore, you are a 90s kid.
Plus, we didn't have enough money to buy a computer that wasn't already from the 90s. So, growing up, I even had dial-up in the mid 2000s. So, you never experienced dial-up.
My brain runs on dial-up every single day. So,
That is accurate. I just don't have 5 games that I have played completely that I really enjoyed that I would like feel comfortable putting in a top 5. So I've got 4, and really it's more like 3.5, but we'll get there. I'll explain my reasoning in a second. A lot like my number 4 pick, I would realistically say Metroid is my number 5, and it could be higher, but I've never actually played the NES Metroid game before. I've only played Zero Mission, and that is my second favorite Metroid game. I want to put it on this list, but I feel like it's not fair because I'm sure there are a lot of things that I could complain about in the original Metroid because quality of life things happened in the 20 years between Metroid and Zero Mission.
almost like technology improves.
Yeah, so we'll kind of say in the quotes or parentheses, Metroid is with an asterisk. That's what I'm looking for. Metroid is number 5 with an asterisk for me.
Well, Jake, Metroid, I think you should play the original Metroid.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Metroid aren't afraid of anything. He's a really cool guy, and he aren't afraid of anything.
I wanted to, and I was going to, but I've had an incredibly busy week this week, and so I just didn't get the chance to try Metroid a little bit. What's your number 5, Jordan?
My number 5, is
Uh-oh.
Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Now, my list for NES games is structured a bit differently. It's not necessarily games that I played and I really enjoyed when I played them, even though I did enjoy all these games, but it's not like they like had a huge impact. A lot of these are because I like to sit and watch speed runs from time to time. Sometimes I'll fall asleep with a speed run playing, or the GOAT speedrun documentarian Summoning Salts.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of his content, and I think he's got one on Punch-Out. And it's amazing how a lot of these NES games will have things that people find that are so specific that you have to do in order to just play them faster than everyone else.
Yeah.
And Punch-Out is one of them.
Mhm.
I think, and so specifically Punch-Out, like the way you have to time the punches and get the certain amount of stars on like certain frames and get the health to drop down on the certain frame or hit them on, it's do the super punches on a specific frame.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Go watch the Summoning Salts video. It'll change your mind completely about Punch-Out. But I also remember playing Punch-Out at my uncle's house because he had an NES. That game's hard.
Yeah.
Like, you fight Glass Joe,
Which is
who's
easy.
easy.
He's only won one match, I think.
Yeah.
According to his record.
And then you fight, was it Raging Bull is, I think, one that I really struggled with. And I think over the course of several visits at my uncle's house, I finally got to fight Mike Tyson. And then he just hits you and you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's it. Because, as you know, it's Mike Tyson. He could kill you by looking at you in real life. But in a video game where, they can change the laws of reality, you actually stand a chance at beating him.
Yeah.
I never did because Mike Tyson, once again, I'm just going to say that because it's Mike
The
Tyson.
only thing that could be worse than Mike Tyson is Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Punch-Out is one of those goats just because it's a very simple concept. It's boxing. And I think the fact that they got Mike Tyson to sign on to it, I mean, he was like the biggest boxer. He is one of the biggest boxers of all time.
He's number 2.
He's number 2 and he makes a very good argument for number 1. And I go back and forth.
Well,
but
he even says himself that I wanted to say Mahershala Ali, not Blade. Muhammad Ali is. He says that Muhammad Ali is above him, and I think I think a lot of people can agree with that.
No, a lot of people agree with it. That's Mike Tyson's idol.
Yeah,
he's also. I mean, he wasn't always humble, but
yeah,
there are some people who are like, stuff you did, man. Mike Tyson had this one move. You can't do it in the game. I know we're kind of talking. We're getting away, but we're still technically talking about boxing.
This is a more chill episode.
But he had this move called the Dempsey Rush, which is where you swing yourself back and forth and you use the momentum from each punch to carry you into the next one. So you like basically swing back and forth and punch, punch, punch. There's a boxing anime that actually like visualizes it really well, like how cool it looks. But you can see Mike Tyson when he goes in on somebody. When he does that swing back and forth, he's charging up. Basically, he's using one of his star moves, his star punches. But yeah, Punch-Out's a great game. I love watching speedruns of it.
Yeah.
And just watching people, go punch, 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 and then they duck, and then they do, they play Punch-Out. But they just play it well in a way that I can't. So
one of the best rhythm games out there.
Any game's a rhythm game if you live your life like that.
Yeah.
But that's my number 5. So let's get into your real number 4.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Punch-Out later.
Jake has more to say about Punch-Out.
Oh, yeah. But my number 4 kind of goes along with my number 5 in the asterisk of Metroid. But I've actually played this one on the NES version. I brought some props. So
props to you.
My number 4 is Kirby's Adventure.
Ironic.
What?
I said ironic.
Oh. Because we just next week's Kirby, if you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
you should know.
In the Amazing Mirror. Yeah, you should know by now. But Kirby's Adventure is or was remade on the Game Boy Advance as Nightmare in Dreamland. I did go back and play not all of it, but a good chunk of it after I beat Nightmare in Dreamland because I wanted to see the difference. And I will say that this game definitely holds up. I still think that this is a solid version of the game, but Nightmare in Dreamland is the definitive way of playing it. But I think this is just one of the most solid Kirby games out there. One of the last Kirby games that Sakurai actually had a hand in, which is kind of crazy to think about because this is says copyright 1985. No, that's not right because I don't even think. No, it couldn't have been.
Didn't he work on Air Ride?
He did, but that's not mainline. I don't know when this came out because it definitely is after the Game Boy version. Because
is that
Dreamland's number 1?
Is that the copyright for when the cart was produced?
It just says Nintendo, so I'm guessing for NES. But
I think that might just be for the NES cartridge, not necessarily the game itself.
But sometime in the 90s, I wonder if this came out after. I don't know when this came out in the timeline. There were a lot of Kirby games. Thank you. But it's a really solid Kirby experience. I still would recommend going for Nightmare in Dreamland over this. But Kirby's Adventure is definitely one of the best NES games.
March of 1993.
93. So this came out after the Super Nintendo, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think Super Nintendo was actually 91 in Japan, 92 around here.
Yeah, because it came out. It came out in after the Genesis.
Yes,
because it was their answer to the Sega Genesis, and then that was the console war of that era.
Yeah, another great probably set of videos from the Gaming Historian on the console wars back then. I think it's the Super Mario World episode. Has a lot to do with the Super Nintendo rising to fame and stuff. It's really good. All of the stuff is really good. Like I said, in next week's episode, full scale documentaries. He's a documentarian. Amazing stuff. But anyways, Kirby is my number 4. Not as big of an asterisk on this one, but I've beaten the game in the remake. I've played probably about half of the game on the NES. Solid game. Highly recommend it. What do you got for number 4, Jordan?
My number 4 is an all-time classic and also just had a movie come out about it, and that is Tetris. Movie starring Taron Egerton. Yeah.
Phenomenal movie.
Did you watch it?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get a chance to see it.
I really liked it. Even it's just one of those movies that even though you know how it ends because it's based off of the real life story, you're on the edge of your seat. It's really good. And it just, as a Nintendo history buff in general, but like a big Nintendo guy, it was just really cool to learn about it. Really cool scene showing off Tetris working as a prototype on the original DMG. It's a beautiful shot. I really like that movie.
Yeah. I'll have to check it out.
Apple TV.
But Tetris is my number 4 because I think that game, I have played not every version of Tetris. I don't want to say that because I don't think that's true. But like every phone I've ever had or every console I've ever had, I have bought Tetris at some point because I absolutely love that game.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite puzzle game that has ever been made.
Yeah.
Because it's so simple and yet so engaging. And once again, watching pro Tetris players play Tetris is
wild.
I think they have to do crack. You have to do some kind of controlled substance in order to play Tetris at the speed those people are doing it. Because I don't know, have you ever seen it? Have you ever watched a professional? Yeah. The blocks are down and in the position they need to be in before you can even register that they're on the screen because they know like the next 6 blocks in sequence. They know from the first 3 blocks that they get when they load in what order the blocks are going to be in for the entirety of the game.
There's a guy, I don't think he's like at the top of the game, but there's a guy on TikTok that his live streams used to pop up for me all the time. If I can find his name, I'll put him up here. I think I followed him on Twitch, but I don't really go on Twitch. It's just insane because they do the whole like on the knee and they tap the back of the controller, I think, or something like that, and they're all boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Insane. Just watch like 30 seconds of a pro Tetris player. They like, I think the NES is like the version for them. I would have included the Tetris. Wow, I sound like my father.
Love you, Dennis.
Love you, Dad. I consider Tetris to be a Game Boy game, even though the original was on like I can't remember what the computer was, and there were other versions of it, but Game Boy put Tetris on the map in my eyes. It's like probably the best-selling version. I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, because you can take Tetris anywhere at that point.
Oh. It's my favorite way to play Game Boy guy, so I'm a little biased. But I felt a little weird not to like make fun of your choice. This is a solid choice. But I didn't want to put Tetris on there. I also don't think I've ever actually played the NES version of Tetris. I think I've only watched people play it.
Oh.
And your list is more about watching people play the games, and mine's I'm trying to stick to games I've only played or completed.
Oh, I see. Trying to throw shade on my list.
I'm not trying to throw shade.
Jeez, being like, no, you're not. This isn't a real list. You haven't actually played these. I have played Tetris on the NES.
Gamer.
Thank you very much. All of the games on here I've actually beaten on the NES. Just so you know. Nobody ever really beats Tetris.
You can beat Tetris on the Game Boy.
Well, once you beat Tetris, you just start it again.
Yeah.
There's no end to Tetris.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be a physical end to the game because, it's not an unlimited amount of memory on an NES cartridge or on a Game Boy cartridge. But you just restart Tetris over again. And I remember I played it with my mom a ton. my mom and I would go back and forth. I'd load up whatever version we had at the time, and I would see if the high score had changed from when I last played it, and then I'd try to beat my high score. If I didn't see the high score change, I would come home from school and find out that my mom had actually beaten my high score, which meant the grind would continue until I did beat it. So we'd go back and forth. It was a fun time my mom and I had playing Tetris. But yeah, that's just also the Tetris theme is one of the greatest video game themes of all time. Yeah. I know it's a piece of Soviet or Russian orchestral music. I think it's the Krobenieki. I don't know that exactly. That's
more than I know.
That's my best
name
guess.
dropping.
It's the Korobeniki. So I said Kromenieki.
That sounds better. It sounds to my ears. It sounds better.
I'm not gonna say that the way I butchered a language is better than the actual language itself, but
yeah,
you go ahead. When the KGB visits your house, don't call me.
It just sounds better in like a phonetic.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah,
but let's take it away from our number 4s
to our number 3s.
To your number 3.
To my number 3. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I wrote this in like 5 seconds. I also laid it out in order. My next prop is Super Mario Bros. SMB1, the original. I have a love-hate relationship with SMB1. It's a classic. Arguably the game that saved video games in 1985. Super Mario Bros. 1 is a classic. It stands the test of time. It is incredibly difficult, but it's even cool on things like Super Mario Bros. 35 that Nintendo just doesn't want to bring back, unfortunately. That was a really cool game, and I never won a match of SMB 35. So, did you ever play that?
Nope.
Do you even know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
So, really?
Nope. I'm blanking.
Mr. Smash Bros. Guy, I guess. SMB 35 was for the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. They made a game for exclusive to NSO. So, online game on NSO. But it was a battle royale.
Oh, I do. Yep. I know what you're talking about.
I'm still going to explain it for the viewers, though. Yep. It was a battle royale of the original Mario game, the NES Mario game, where you all went through the game, and I think it was only 4 levels. Maybe there was all of them that you could play. But you just ran through the game, and you would hop around different levels. You could repeat levels in the same battle royale session. But when you would like take out an enemy, you would send it to another player's game. And so you could just have a Bowser in the middle of 1-1. You could have like 3 Koopas right next to each other. You could have some Hammer Bros in places that shouldn't have Hammer Bros. I've seen people have 2 Bowsers on screen. Like, it is wild, and it is very hard. Like, that game is hard by itself. But then when you have 34 other people sending enemies to your game, obviously not at the same time, it's spread around, but it makes it even harder. It was so cool. And I'm not putting it on this list because of this. I really want Nintendo to bring that back. I think it's one of the coolest ideas they've had in a long time.
I agree.
And there's no reason for it not to go away. Even if I had to pay, I mean, technically we do because we have to pay for Switch Online to play it back then. And if it came back, you'd still need it. But I would pay like probably $20, upwards of $20. And that's probably my cap, $20 to play SMB 35 again. But the original game, I really like. When I did initially beat it back in 2020, I got the NES Classic console, the mini console, and I beat that game on that, and I beat it legit. I had gotten pretty far with like save states and stuff, but I didn't use rewind. I didn't use save states. I didn't play all 32 levels, but I used all of the shortcut cheats that I knew of, and I beat the game legit. And it took me a very long time. A lot of words were exchanged between me and the television, and yeah, that it was when I had finally beat it. I was like, I'm never playing this game again. And then the Super Mario Game and Watch came out, and then I played it a lot on that.
Yeah.
And I've played it a lot since then. It's a fun game, but
no, it's a fun, basic video game. I don't mean basic as a bad thing. I mean it is like it's one of the GOAT video games of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you said, one of the reasons we're still playing video games to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and like there might have been platformers before that, but it really gave birth to the platformer genre.
Well, and it set the blueprint for like how platformers going for like how they were supposed to feel, like what their structure was. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog only exists because its whole thing was to beat Mario.
Yep, they needed something to take on Mario,
Mm-hmm.
and I would argue that they did not do that very successfully at the time. For a little bit, yeah.
For the original Sonic games, they did very well.
Yeah.
And then Super Mario World came out, and they were like, "Dang!" And then when it came to 3D, Mario just kind of took off running and never stopped, and Sonic was stuck in the water level drowning because he can't swim.
Yeah, because like, what's funny, I just thinking about that. Sonic only was able to beat Mario when Sonic was in the 16-bit generation, and Mario was still an 8-bit.
Yep. Sonic never made the transition to 3D very well.
No,
Mario did very well with his transition.
You're telling me that Sonic 3D Blast wasn't the game of the year? Was it 3D Blast? Is that what it's called?
Are you talking about the one on the Saturn or on the Genesis? There's two versions of that game.
Saturn or maybe it was the Sega CD game.
That was Sonic CD.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably thinking of the one on the Saturn.
The Saturn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like an isometric, like a top-down kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. That game was fun. It's not anything to really write home about.
Sonic might be one of those series that I learned to love from this podcast, but of all the Sonic games I've tried, my favorite one is Sonic Unleashed. So,
if that's your favorite one, then you're gonna like a lot more of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My only memory of it was I rented it from either Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, and I was playing it with my friends on the day of, I don't know which number Super Bowl it was, but it was the Saints versus the Colts, and the Saints won that one. That was also like the first time I started liking football. It's kind of funny. I guess you could also say that Sonic made me not like Sonic and made me like football instead. But I only have fond memories of Sonic Unleashed.
You were not born to be a Sonic kid. That's just
no. When game is marketed as gotta go fast, and then in the second world of the first Sonic game, I don't go very fast.
Yeah, and you just get stretchy arms. It's a little.
Oh man,
it's a little funky.
Yeah, but NES games.
But back to what we're talking about.
I really like SMB1. A lot of things that I rage at, but I think that is one of the few games where I can really just boil it down to get good, kid.
Yeah.
Because it's a really solid game. I think there are a few glitches, but they're not like game ruining glitches. They're just like speedrun hacks.
That's your number 3?
That's my number 3. What's yours?
Mine is one that you have touched on a little bit, but I think I'm going to go a little bit more in depth. And that's Metroid.
Oh.
And this does not have to do with a speed run. This just has to do with Metroid being one of my favorite franchises ever. Now, I will say Zero Mission is the superior version of the original Metroid.
Yeah.
I think we all know that. But I love this game. I played it not on the NES, but on the Game Boy Advance, like remake of the original
Yeah.
NES or the re-release of the original NES
In the
version.
classic series.
Yeah, the classic series.
Yep.
And man, what a fun game. I
Mhm.
mean, it's basically it's the same as any other Metroid. You're jumping around, shooting aliens, fighting space pirates, fighting Mother Brain.
Mhm.
But I remember my best friend and I were talking about it, and we each had drawn our own maps of the original Metroid because I was like, "Oh, I'll go on the internet," but I think it will be more fun because I like art and stuff. So I was like, I'll draw my own map. Like I'll draw my own map with the different things in the background.
Yeah.
So I got some grid paper.
Yeah.
And I drew. I had several pages, which have since been lost. I don't know where this map went.
Yeah.
But I have it, like the map of the entire game.
That's sick.
In each zone. Like I just drew it out so like I could be like, okay, I'm here. I remember, and it helped me remember where I was going to. It's a very simple game. I mean, you still have all the classic stuff there. You have the morph ball, the missiles. You have, all the fights are basically the same. Ridley's there. Kraid is there.
I just can't imagine, like, again, never even booted up Metroid 1 on the NES. But after the lack of quality of life in Super Metroid, I'm going to get some hate for that. Because I played Super Metroid last out of all the 2D Metroids. Obviously, I haven't played the NES or the Game Boy version of Metroid 2 for that matter. The lack of quality of life that I was used to not being in Super Metroid was painful for me there. And I can't imagine having to play a Metroid game without LNR. Like, I feel like
oh yeah,
the lack of extra buttons would be hard for me to play it.
You get very friendly with the select button, let me tell you.
Yeah. At least it gets some use.
Yeah. That's true.
Gosh. Most neglected button in gaming history. Unless you're playing apparently Metroid or Link's Awakening on the Game Boy.
Any PS2 game, you have to check the map, you hit that select button.
That's fair.
That's your favorite.
That's fair.
That's your favorite button right there. Other than that, I mean, really there's not a ton to say about the original Metroid. Honestly, it's Zero Mission, just a little bit worse, but it's also it was fun for me to go back and see where everything started and see how much we've improved because there is a lot of lack of quality of life in the original Metroid. It's also a very dark game, and I don't mean in tone, I mean visually. The back screens, a lot of them are darker colors. I mean, in the opening levels, I'm pretty sure it's just black.
Yeah.
It's just a black screen. So it hurt my eyes when I played it the first time.
It's got to look good on OLED.
It might. It might for all I know. Those didn't exist when I played it.
This is true.
But I just really love Metroid. And so it had to be on the list as one of my top 5 NES games. Ridley looks very weird in this game.
Really?
He looks kind of like a weird egg. He's still purple. He's still got wings, but he looks kind of funky. It's kind of funky looking.
Me and Jordan both love Metroid so much to the point that we almost went with Metroid, like top 5 Metroid games as this initial top 5 video. But we'll still definitely do that down the line because I'm going to upset some people. We might just I don't know if we'll do all of Metroid games or just maybe rank all the 2D and there's not enough for a top 5 for 3D. But
would you like to see something truly cursed from the NES Metroid manual?
Sure.
That is what Ridley looks like in the manual. For anybody who can't, that's what he looks like in the manual. What is that, you ask?
Yeah.
What's wrong with his face? I have no idea. What does he look like in the game? He looks like that. He looks like the normal purple dragon.
He looks like Barney.
But like I said, funky looking.
Yeah.
Still funky looking, but normal. I mean, look at his weird little foot thing he's got going on there. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And he's got his thighs look like they're just filled with air. Like it's wild. I mean, just look at this man. He killed Samus's parents. This guy. You really think this guy did that? I don't.
Puff the Magic Dragon?
Puff the Magic Dragon. Yeah, he is puffing something,
Barney?
that's for sure. Anyway, that's my number 3. What's your number 2, Jake?
We've talked about this game. Make me a little sad when you put it at number 5, but Punch-Out is my number 2. I love Punch-Out. When I collected it, when I got it for the collection, I made sure I found Mike Tyson's Punch-Out because I originally, like SMB1, I played it on my NES Classic. So they have that with Mr. Dream or whatever.
Yeah.
Because licensing, I mean, the license for this game, the Mike Tyson license, ended before they stopped printing this. So there are many Punch-Out copies. I think there might even be more Punch-Out copies without Mike Tyson than there are with Mike Tyson. I could be wrong on that though. Not super up to date on my my NES collecting knowledge, but I love this game, and it's still one of them that I have not completed because it is so hard, and I don't think I'll ever be able to complete it without save states. Or I guess there's codes in this because this is before they were geniuses and put coin cell batteries in games to save them. It worked, but it is wreaking havoc on the collectors now. There's no saving whatsoever in this game, and you use codes. You have to remember the codes that they give you at the end of some fights.
Yep.
And that's how you get back to where you were.
Good old password system.
Yep. But it works. But this definitely feels like an arcade game. I think it might. I know it is an arcade game, but I don't know what came first. Real chicken or the egg, but that actually has an answer.
I will look it up for you, and I will tell you.
Let me know what you think. Chicken or egg? Which one came first?
You have 60 seconds.
Punch-Out is just a really fun. We've already talked about it a little bit. I just enjoy the. There's a bit of a rhythm to it. Trying to alternate between left and right as fast as you can, as much as you can before the enemy decides to start blocking you again. Even though it's very basic, there's still a lot of strategy to it. I try not to do like the speed run glitches to like get past certain things, but what's his name? I think it's the Honda guy. That the like really big guy that I always struggle with.
Oh, King, what's his name?
Nah,
Are you talking about the guy whose face looks weird? He wears a crown.
maybe
He's the fat guy. I know that.
You have to punch the guy. You have to punch in the belly button.
Mm-hmm.
That guy always gets me.
King Hippo.
King Hippo. He gets me every time. I don't even think I've come close to beating or even seeing Mike Tyson. I'm not as prepared to talk about it because I haven't played any of these games like recently leading up to the podcast like we do with every other game we talk about in this podcast.
Piston Honda. Is that who you're
Piston
talking
Honda.
about? Yeah.
He's another one I believe I struggle with. I could be wrong. It's been probably close to a year since I last played this game. But it is doing this episode makes me want to play it again right now. So I might do that soon.
To answer your question from earlier, and if you haven't commented now, your time has run out. Punch-Out and Super Punch-Out, both those arcade games came out in 1984 before Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Also, fun fact I just learned, Mr. Dream is actually a boxer from Dreamland.
Huh.
Like where Kirby's from. And he has his record is 99 knockouts and 0 losses. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Just wanted to share that in what I just read right here.
Also,
Cool lore.
speaking of Easter eggs, it's not really that hidden, but this was back in the era where all the different Nintendo IPs would share little bits and bobs. Like there's a Chain Chomp in Link's Awakening,
Mm-hmm.
and Mario is the referee in this game. And I always liked that. I always thought that was cool. They don't really do that a ton anymore. You don't really see other characters in other universes because that would break the canon and blah blah blah.
Also, I'm pretty sure it's illegal.
No, I mean like between like Zelda and Mario are owned by Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
Like you could throw a little Mario reference in there.
People ask too many questions with how that stuff works, which takes a lot of the fun out of it.
It's a video game.
Exactly. But people don't want that.
Yeah.
They want the real in-universe explanation. It's like, well, there isn't one. He's just here.
Yeah.
Accept it, move on. Why did Rhodey change from Iron Man to Iron Man 2? We know the real world explanation.
Yeah.
In universe, he just went, I'm here, accept it, move on.
Yeah. Yeah, Punch-Out's that's my number 2. And there's only one other game that tops it that we'll talk about in a second after we hear your number 2.
My number 2 is probably going to be surprising to a lot of listeners of this podcast, some longtime listeners since the beginning. The Legend of Zelda is my number 2 because I think, especially playing it recently over the past few years, when Breath of the Wild was coming out, they were talking about how they really went back to the original Legend of Zelda to look at the design philosophies there. Playing it again with that kind of fresh mindset and seeing once again where everything started and how it evolved into like Breath of the Wild was fascinating. Just how many things in this game you just sort of happen upon. You can beat the dungeons really in any order, I'm pretty sure. I think there's an order I always go by, or rather the guide I follow goes by.
Yeah.
But there's things like you can put the bomb, you bomb this random rock wall to find the entrance to the dungeon, which is frustrating, I know, because nothing tells you that.
Yeah.
Except, I think if you read the manual, if you just read, Jake, you'd know.
Okay.
But also...
I'll let you finish before I debate.
Also, there's no way you could know that playing the game, 30 years later. But yeah, it's amazing to see how many enemies you think are new enemies, but have been in Zelda since the beginning. I think the Lynels, which I had never heard of until Breath of the Wild, are actually in
the Richies.
The original. Yeah. The what?
You said the Lynels?
Yes, the Lionel Richies.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, what?
I don't know a ton about this game, but I like from time to time, I like to start from the beginning when I jump into a new series. And I had played a little bit of Breath of the Wild because when I got my Switch, it was one of 4 games on it. And so I gave it a shot and I didn't mind it. That was also like I was fresh off of playing Skyrim. And I know that especially back when Breath of the Wild came out, those two were compared very closely. So I was like, yeah, I dig it. Still haven't beaten Breath of the Wild. I'm 2 Divine Beasts in, and if I ever go back to play it, which we probably will for the podcast, I'm probably going to start over. But anyways, I took my knowledge of sort of kind of half a Zelda game and went back and played the NES Zelda game with 0 knowledge and on NSO. And I think I'm probably totally wrong, but I think they do have the manuals in NSO that might be on the NES Classic, or I might just be pulling that out of my butt. But
wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, I do that a lot. That's why we have editing. But that game doesn't really tell you a whole lot. And if I didn't cut to my camera when you said it, having to put a bomb down in a random spot on the wall to blow it up to then find something is just something that aggravates me because that's exactly what I don't like in video games. It's something that is like mostly a product of the 80s and 90s, but you still have things like that happen today. It's like, how am I supposed to know? I am not one of those people who's going to go around throwing a bomb on every single pixel in the game. But if I was playing that game and found that randomly, that is what I would spend the rest of time doing, is bombing every single square in that game to hopefully find another one because I don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
It just, from immediately getting lost in that game, but also it being very difficult when you have no idea what you're doing, and then not having any idea of what to do in the game. That's one of those games where I feel like you need either the original manual or you need a guide or a walkthrough.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. I don't think I will ever beat that game. And if you ask to play it for the podcast, that will be a veto.
Totally understandable.
So,
I wouldn't suggest that for the podcast because that just seems like torturous. Yeah.
This is -1 on my bottom one NES games. I think this might be my least favorite.
Wow. Jeez. Okay. But I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
now that I've taken a giant dump on your number 2.
Well, I like it.
Number 2.
You know what? And I still had your number 2 on my list.
Yeah.
And you were all like, but why is it number 5?
I'm offended that it's number 5.
Because there are 4 games I just happen to like better. That's why top 5 lists are subjective.
Yep. We do it in good fun. Me and Jordan are good friends.
Don't touch me. So yeah, Legend of Zelda. It's a great game. You probably are going to want to use a guide. I wouldn't recommend playing it without one unless you're a true masochist and you have like a month maybe of free time because you're going to need to take breaks.
Yeah.
But it's fun to see where everything started, and it spawned one of my favorite gaming series of all time.
Yeah.
If you list the games I have the most experience with on the NES, this is probably number 2. There is another one. That's why it's at number 1. And it's one that actually has a even deeper meaning. But before we get to that, Jake, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is, wow. It's really bad when you blank on your favorite game of an entire console. But I am picking up. It's Duck Hunt. I'm not even going to try and
Jake,
be fancy with it.
Is Duck Hunt all it's quacked up to be?
Anyways, you didn't like my joke in the next episode. Duck Hunt is my all-time favorite NES game, and it's kind of a shocker. Like, hunting does not interest me at all in real life. I actually would say I dislike the idea of it. Hitting some pixelated ducks in this game, oh my goodness. Let me tell you, I have an entire video. I guess I shouldn't say dedicated because there are other things I talk about in the video, but I have a whole video that I made just trying to get Duck Hunt to work on a modern TV. And it's not easy. If you don't know, the NES Blaster is made for CRTs. It specifically uses the technology in the cathode ray tube.
Actually, I think it's called the NES Zapper.
I really don't care. You said Blaster.
It is Zapper. You're correct. Thank you, Nerdy Jordan, for that one.
You don't even know what your favorite NES game's peripherals
I just blanked.
called?
I'm sorry. I just knew it wasn't Gun. The NES Zapper is made for CRTs because that's really all we had back then. There was no LED, there was no LCD, and there might have been LCDs. I mean, I think technically the DMG screen is LCD, but that was before this too. Or that was after this too. But yeah, you need a CRT for it. Or you can get the Hyperkin adapter that requires the combo version, not the 3 combo with the track and field third game, the specifically Mario Bros. Not new Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt cartridge for it to work. And there's an adapter that slides into the bottom, and then you put that in your NES. I think you can use it with the classic, the original NES variant. It probably works a lot easier with the
top loader.
Top loader. I have an aftermarket NES SNES combo that's got an HDMI port in it. It's not like upscaling really or anything. It just has a little bit of a cleaner look than if you just plugged in AV cables to a modern TV. But anyways, you need that adapter. It's from Hyperkin, and it comes with a special zapper that is made to scan for the white blocks that flash up very quickly on duck hunt shots, because when you shoot the zapper, it makes the screen go black except for the white spot either where the duck is or where you shoot. No, I think it's where the ducks are, and the zapper is trying to scan for that block. And if it doesn't see it, then you miss. And if it does see it, you hit the duck. It was really fun to go through that process and try and find a way to do it on monitor TVs. And I wish it was an easier setup for it, but I wanted to get rid of my CRT when I made that video. But I love Duck Hunt that much that I was not willing to get rid of the CRT until I could find a way to play Duck Hunt on a modern TV. That's how much I love this game. That is why it's my number one.
There you go. Duck Hunt's a great game. I love Duck Hunt. It's a simple, classic, fun game. The NES Zapper. I mean, whenever I played it, I always had a great time.
Yeah.
And then there's that stupid dog that laughs at you. And I was very happy when Duck Hunt made it into Smash Bros.
Yeah.
It was like, crazy pick, but you know what? I'm here
Works.
for it.
It's about as crazy as Rob.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Rob.
Yeah. His game did not make it. Gyromite, I think is his game.
Gyromite. And because he was player 2. He was your little friend.
Did not make it onto my top 5 or yours.
Did
Sorry
you
to spoil yours.
Did you have a copy of Gyromite
No,
and Rob?
I've never played it.
Yeah.
I do want to rob the robot.
It's
really bad.
It's very slow.
I'm sure it's not that fun of a game, but just like the history behind Rob is so cool. Like it's literally, it was made so the NES looked more like a toy than a video game console because of the video game crash of 1982.
Right, and then it could also be sold in the toy section.
Yes, and that was how you could trick parents into buying a video game console back in the 80s.
And then the kids were like, yo, this guy sucks.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, we can play Mario. And then they actually made good games and had officially licensed stuff. Well, Jordan, what's your number one?
My number one is probably one that a lot of people will agree with, but I have complex reasoning, and that is I like it. But it's Super Mario Brothers 3, which I think is the best NES Mario game, just because it's not Doki Doki Panic, or it's like actually, you know, a true sequel. It innovated, and I love the art style and a lot of the gameplay within it. Raccoon Mario or Tanuki Mario is one of my favorite power-ups. You get the P wing, and then you get to fly, and then you can run with Tanuki Mario, and you can, you know, float and fly and do all that cool stuff. But the complex reasoning, other than I like it, is I actually first interacted with this game on the Game Boy Advance with Super Mario Advance 4.
The start of Nintendo's extremely confusing. Well, I guess you would say even the original NES copies were the start of the confusing names that Nintendo loves to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because Super Mario 2 and Super Mario 2 and Super Mario USA are technically 3 different games.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, because Super Mario 2 was, for the Japanese version, was too hard.
Yeah.
For Americans.
For us dumb old Americans.
Which, I'm going to be honest with you, was probably true.
Yes.
Back then, especially. Then you got Doki Doki Panic, which turned into Super Mario Brothers 2. And then you also have the Lost Levels, which is
Super Mario Bros. 2.
But then everybody got Super Mario Brothers 3 because they're like, all right, everyone can play this one. It's fine.
But you played it on the advanced version.
Initially.
Which is not Super Mario Advance 3. It's Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3.
Which is confusing because you don't see the Super Mario Advance 4 at the top of the box. You just see...
No, it's on the box.
No, it's on the box, but it is overshadowed by the giant Super Mario Bros. 3 with Mario flying on the top.
Yeah.
Also, when you look at the cartridge, it just says Super Mario Bros. 3, and then in tiny letters on top,
Yeah.
excuse me, it says Super Mario Advance 4.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this game is so good. It's so good. The levels are amazing. There's one level that always pisses me off. It's in the desert with the sun that has that creepy face, and then it swoops down to try to kill you. There's also the weird like sun snake enemies that jump around. That scared me the first time I saw them. And part of it was when I got it on the Game Boy Advance, my sisters and I would trade back and forth trying to beat levels. I think there's in the water set of water levels, there's like a fish that jumps up to try to get you as well. Like it's another one like the sun level, so you have to dodge that one. We got stuck on that one forever, and we'd go back and forth trying to beat it.
It's like the fish in Super Mario Land, which is probably my favorite Super Mario game, which is a controversial take in itself.
Isn't that one of the Game Boy ones?
It's the original Game Boy one.
Yeah, I remember that one. I have that one, I think, because I have an original Game Boy that's clear.
Yeah, that's my nostalgia game. Because like you were saying, you and your sisters traded off playing that. I would hand off the game to my dad and say, please beat this because I can't.
I just want to move on. I'm sick of being stuck here. But yeah, Super Mario Brothers 3, Raccoon Mario with his spins that he does, and the music. Oh man, what was it? I think it's the desert level where it's like doo-ba-doo, doo-ba-doo, doo-doo-doo, 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 doo-doo-doo-doo. I love that one. Love that song. A lot of songs from that game I think about quite frequently. And it's just like elevator music for my brain when I'm sitting doing nothing. But I remember those times so fondly. It was like the first game I got for my Game Boy Advance SP.
Yeah.
When I was surprised with it as like a gift. I was like, oh, this is crazy. This goes hard.
Yeah.
And then, it also had Mario Bros on it, which is
the original, not Super Mario Bros.
Which is, whatever.
Yeah.
It was included with every copy of Super Mario Advance.
Which you can also play that on 4-player link cable support.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you can do that. We could do that on NSO too now.
I did that. Well, I'm not going to do that.
No.
Because yeah.
And we don't.
You'll find out next week why I won't be doing that on NSO. But yeah, Super Mario Brothers 3 I think is the best game on the NES just because it's timeless. That is a timeless, perfect video game. And I think that is one that I would recommend to anyone who, if you like the original Mario Brothers, go play that one. It's better in my opinion. I'm not going to say that objectively it's better because I don't think, you can say that when it comes to these kind of things. But yeah, it's a fantastic game.
Do you put it above Super Mario World?
No, I don't. Well, I know I said something along those lines in the Wonder podcast. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I still think Super Mario World is the best 2D Mario. I don't think it's the best game on the SNES.
Yeah, no.
But I think it's the best 2D Mario because, man, there's a reason my favorite Mario Maker levels are in the Super Mario World style.
Yeah.
Because that's just my favorite one to play. It feels the best. I tried the Mario Brothers 3 ones, and I'm like, yeah, this is too simple. I like the spin jump. I like the cape. I like the sound or the themes. Just the feel of Mario World. But Mario Bros. 3 is my favorite game on the NES.
You may have noticed that game didn't make it anywhere on my top 5 list.
I did.
And I own it. And I did not bring it with me today for a prop to defend myself before the pitchforks come out, if they aren't out already from other comments this episode and previous episodes. When I beat Super Mario Bros. 1, I was very frustrated because of how hard that game was and how much I struggled with it. But I wanted to beat every Mario game. And so I went to Super Mario Bros. 2. And I'm like, what is this? This is not Mario. It legitimately, to me, Super Mario Bros. 2 feels like a bootleg Mario game.
Basically
because
is.
it kind of is. And I'm like, what? I don't like the look of it. I don't like how it feels. It's cool to see the enemies and just the characters in general that have come from that game. Shy Guys are cool. Birdo is still very weird and creepy to me. Man, that game is quite literally a fever dream. Because at the end, he's just dreaming. Is it real? I don't know.
Does it put you into a Doki Doki panic?
I didn't finish the game. I got too enraged and I stopped playing the game. And I was like, dear Lord, please let SMB3 be better. It is. It definitely is. I don't think you can get much worse than Super Mario Bros. 2. But I was just like, frustration from SMB1, even more frustration from SMB2. And when I started SMB3, and it's still hard, no saving your progress.
Yeah.
So many levels. I was just, nope. And I have not played it since then. Like, I maybe have started a couple levels for like getting B-roll on some video or something like that. I have Super Mario Advance 4. I have the NES copy of it. There are plenty of other ways to play it digitally. NSO, my classic console, whatever. Super Mario All-Stars 2. There's a million ways to play that game, but I'll eventually be down to play it again for the podcast. But that's just one of those games where I personally need save states because there's just way too many levels for me to be able to beat it with the 3 lives that they give you.
Yeah.
So if and when I give it another chance, I'm gonna like it more. But right now I'm like, no thank you.
Well, Jake, all I have to say to that is cry more, skill issue, get good.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
Cannot fight you back on that one.
But I understand.
But it's not on my negative list, that's for sure.
Well, you survived the day because of that.
I was considering putting it in the top 5 just because, again, Metroid has a giant asterisk, and I've actually played Super Mario Bros. 3, but it was not a entirely joyous time for me. So I just couldn't in good faith put it up there.
Well, we respect your integrity.
My journalistic integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, I think that covers our top 5s.
Yeah, that's it. Let us know your top 5s in the comments. And also let us know what console or series you'd like us to tackle next. Some things we're just going to have to wait on because either one or both of us haven't completed 5 games from a console yet.
Very true.
So, yeah, that's a reason why a number of consoles we did not choose for this week. But
the
next one will be on in March, the end of March, on the 5th Saturday of March. So you've got a couple months to think of what console or series you want us to tackle. Oh, also, we should probably say this now if we haven't announced it already. The last episode of the year is also on a 5th Saturday, and we are going to be ranking all of the games that we played this year, and that'll probably be the thing that we do going forward, and that will be a much longer, larger episode when we actually have a full year of podcasts to review.
Oh my gosh.
In 2024.
We might have to, at the end of the year, split that into 2 episodes.
We'll probably just not really. We'll have brief remarks for the first 40 games of the list. Because it'll be about, well, if we actually stick to 1 game a week and only doing the 4 5th Saturdays of the year, we'll have 47 games to talk about because the end of the year recap will be the last of the year in December as well. So,
and that's a big if we stick to it.
That's a big if this podcast lives to see that day.
Yeah, and also if life
doesn't get in the way.
decide to rear its ugly head.
Someone wants to move in January, and
that's me.
Actually, I was gonna say something that I don't want to leak yet. So,
oh yeah,
because there's something happening in January.
Big changes are coming.
My birthday.
Yeah, but we don't care about that.
Oh.
So that, I guess, concludes this very chill, relaxed episode of the Backlog Club.
Yep.
We appreciate you guys listening to this. It gives us a break so that we can not lose sleep over, trying to get these games done. And it's a bit of a free form kind of episode where we don't have to stay wholly on topic.
Yeah.
The game that we're talking about.
We can do a lot more reminiscing of the past and stuff. And I think a lot of people would enjoy that, just because I like hearing about my favorite creators past. I was just listening to Chuckle Sandwich talk about games that they love from their childhood, and even just a few years ago. Nostalgia is a fun thing.
It can be.
But I also want to say, if you haven't seen the posts for December, we are starting off with Kirby and the Amazing Mirrors. We've already gone over a couple times in this podcast. Then after that, we are hitting Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Then we are doing Super Mario Galaxy. And the last game of the year will be not The Legend of Iowa, but The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
That's going to be a big one.
That is a big one.
It's going to take a lot of time.
Another reason why we're doing this episode.
So that we can actually have time to finish that game. I've played it before. Jake has not. So he's going to need
40
all the extra time in December that he can get.
to 50 hours while planning